Well, that's a tough question. So, no matter what definition I give you, the one thing I can say is that not all the languages on the Indigenous Tweet site meet that definition. So usually people say an indigenous language is one that's been spoken in the same area for a long time before, say, colonizing language came in and replaced it. There are several languages on the website that wouldn't really fit any definition of indigenous. So an example would be Haitian Creole is one of the languages that we support. In fact, one of the languages with the most users on Indigenous tweets. And it's not really, it's of course a Creole based on French spoken in Haiti. So it wouldn't really be considered an indigenous language by any definition. So that begs the question, what exactly are the languages that I am supporting if they're not strictly speaking indigenous? And the languages that I'm interested in supporting on the site are ones for which there's a lack of technology and support for people on the computer. Well, one answer is it's hard to tell because Twitter doesn't track any demographics like that. So some of the time you have to guess. I've done some informal analysis of the communities that I know. So looking at Irish, for example, and among the top 20 or so tweeters in Irish, I'd say roughly half of them are under 30, and several of them appear to be under 20. So for a long time, when we started the site for the first couple months, the number one tweeter in Irish was a 16-year-old girl, which was something of a surprise. People think of the language as dying out among the younger community. Young people aren't speaking it by choice. When I created the site and I wrote the programs to track all these tweets, it came as a surprise to me personally that the number one person using the language was a teenager. She's since been supplanted as number one, but still she's in the top 5. That's a good question, and it's true that a lot of them are multilingual, and that was one of the surprising messages again for me in looking at the statistics on the site. Each language page shows the percentage of the time that people tweet in the target language, and it's very infrequent that people are tweeting 100% of the time in their indigenous tongue for whatever reason, and especially so in the African languages where generally speaking the percentages for languages like Chichewa in Malawi are 1%, 2% of the time in the mother tongue, and then the rest of the time presumably tweeting in English or another major language. Well, so people tweet for different reasons, and they tweet with different audiences. People like to tweet in their mother tongue, first of all. So for the people for which the minority language or the indigenous language is their mother tongue, that's the natural thing for them to do. But then for people, say like myself, my native language is English, but I choose to tweet in Irish because that's the community that I'm participating in and part of online. And those are the people that I'm communicating with. So it's natural for me to want to reach out to those people in our common language. Well, the reactions have been overwhelmingly positive. I've been really happy and inspired by the response I've gotten from really all of the communities on the site all over the world. People just sending me tweets and email messages supporting what I'm doing. I've had, of the 100 languages, probably 30 of them I've had volunteers translate the website. So each page will appear in in the language itself, so the tables and the headings and things like that. So people have just stepped up and volunteered and said, hey, let me translate the few words on this page. So the response has been great. I've had a couple, the one or two negative responses. Some people have been unhappy with the use of the word indigenous. Some of the European languages, thinking that indigenous is really a term that belongs or should be restricted to, say, indigenous American languages or African languages. I actually disagree with that point. I mean, I think by my definition of indigenous, a language like Irish, which has been spoken, at least in the Gaeltacht, the Irish-speaking parts of Ireland, contiguously for hundreds or thousands of years, is really an indigenous language. The basic technology, the technology is based on a toolkit that Twitter provides. So Twitter is a platform that allows users to do tweets, but it's also a platform for programmers. And this is really the basis of the success of Twitter, is that they make it possible for people like me or anybody who's a good programmer to build software applications on top of their platform and their data. So for me as a programmer, it's possible to access the database of tweets. They give you limited access. You can't obviously pull everything from their database, but I have access where I can download a given user's tweets, and then I apply a process of language identification, which is based on some statistical analysis on the words and the characters that appear in the tweet to decide what language it's written in. The other aspect of the site is a search aspect, a search module that looks for users of the languages we already support, and also looks for new languages, basically. So a lot of this is based on statistical analyses of languages. So for many years, I've been collecting documents written in smaller languages that appear on blogs and other websites. And those documents I use as the basis for the statistical analysis that the software does. Hopefully so. So one of the things I'd like to do is I'd like to branch out to other media. So, for example, it would be nice to be able to do the same thing, for example, with Facebook. I've been asked about this quite a few times by people. So the basic idea behind Indigenous tweets is to build communities. And a lot of people have said that Facebook is even better than Twitter in terms of building communities because of the multimedia aspects and things like that. So the issue with Facebook is that most of the data on Facebook is private. There's also a similar toolkit that Facebook provides developers that allow them to create applications. Most Facebook users will have seen these. I mean, oftentimes they're games and things like that, but there are also applications that can access people's status updates on Facebook and things like that. But the default behavior on Facebook is for things to be private. And because of that, it makes it much more difficult than doing what I've done on Indigenous tweets with Twitter, where the default behavior is for things to be public. Now, of course, on Twitter, people can keep their tweets private if they so choose. And when they do that, I'm not able to track them on Indigenous tweets, so it's important that people understand that. The other thing in terms of evolving technology is the idea of tracking blogs, because there are a lot of people, and really an incredible number of people, who are now writing blogs in Indigenous and minority languages around the world. And this is something actually that I'm already working on, so I'll say stay tuned for that, and hopefully I'll have something to show pretty soon. Well, I mentioned the API, this toolkit that they provide to programmers. Now that's really, again, that's not aimed so much at the international community as just making a platform that people can do interesting things, period. But they have done a lot in terms of making the website accessible for international users. So a very simple basic thing is that Twitter supports Unicode. So Unicode is, for those who don't know, a way of representing characters, letters, numbers, punctuation, etc., on the computer, and it's able to represent any character in any alphabet in any language around the world, including historical scripts and things like that. I mean, there's a very small number of scripts that are not yet part of the Unicode encoding, but more or less, if you have a writing system for your language, which is true for thousands of languages, then you are able to write your language on the computer using Unicode. And because Twitter fully supports Unicode, then that means you can tweet in your language. So that's a big boost. It's a very simple thing, and Unicode has been around since the early 90s, and it's now sort of to the point where it's now an industry standard, and hopefully everybody will use it. Sure. So the most important thing, and if I had the ear of Google and Facebook, I would say, let us translate your websites. I mean, it's a very simple thing, but Google is now available in I don't know how many languages. Maybe the Google search interface, in maybe 100 languages. Facebook is available in dozens. Again, I haven't looked at the latest count, but so they've started the process of making their websites accessible to other languages, but there have been real difficulties in getting them to open up to even more languages, and especially the most endangered and the smallest indigenous languages. And there's really, from my perspective, no reason for them to hold this kind of work up. The way the translation process works for both Google and Facebook, as examples, is entirely through crowdsourcing. So they make the messages and the strings on their websites available to people in the community who translate them for free, so nobody gets paid. And the community, they just want to have, say, Google search interface in their language, so they're willing to do the work. And I know personally dozens of communities that are out there that are willing to do that work. It's just a matter of getting somebody at Google or Facebook to open up and say, sure, here are the strings, and we'll do the small amount of work that's necessary to add you to the site and support it. So I have a friend who's a sort of my counterpart for Scottish Gaelic language named Michael Bauer, who's started a petition online to petition Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook to allow many more indigenous languages on the site. So we'll see how that goes.